people who live in the San Fernando Valley want to know about their world, but in our fast-paced society, their world includes a lot, from Russia to Reseda, from Washington to West Hills, and they want to get all of that in their own newspaper. And so we have the job of providing news coverage from around the world and across the street. And it all has to be the same quality, the same high-level quality that they expect from the Times. And so we have a whole separate group of journalists that are based here in Chatsworth whose job is to cover the San Fernando Valley and surrounding valleys just as well as we cover Washington, D.C.
Putting the paper together every night is kind of like assembling a giant puzzle. Pieces are coming from all over, and the thing about this puzzle is sometimes you get pieces you never knew you were going to have in the box.
The process, it's a crazy process, and somehow it seems to work every day. Stories, I'd say most stories are found by the reporters themselves. They do get a lot of assignments from editors, that's part of my job. But for the most part, they come up to the editor and say, hey, I've got great stuff. And they tell you about the story, and we say, fine, let's put it on what we call our budget, our list of stories, and we get the process rolling. When the reporters are working on their stories in the late afternoon, at the same time, the editors will convene for what we call the budget meeting, which is really the most important meeting of the day, and we have lots of meetings, believe me. And during the budget meeting, what'll happen is we'll be discussing what's on A1, the front page of the paper.
The off-lead is Simpson. Defense attorneys and prosecutors squared off over evidence in court today and over the scientific tests that are being performed to determine whether O.J. was at the scene of the crime.
We'll also look at the B section and decide how we're going to mix and match stories so that Valley readers really get the most out of the paper.
I mean, there are things that have happened.
Yeah, but I mean, in terms of a B1 story, Amy, I don't think it competes with what we have, see?
All the major departments will be represented at that meeting. You'll see them discussing the stories of the day and deciding how they should be played. And they'll also look at the photography, and sometimes we argue about the photos as well, trying to decide what's the best way to play a story. The best time to come around the newsroom is really in the late afternoon, and because that's when reporters are writing their stories, when they're calling back sources, when they're typing away furiously at the terminal to meet the deadline. And a reporter will turn in a story, editor will look at it and call him up to his terminal.
Okay, all right, as long as we can back up those characterizations in the trial.
Mm-hmm. Well, being a reporter is often a lot of waiting around and drudgery work. It's not often the flashy kind of get the story, get the scoop, get it in the paper. It takes time to get stories, takes time to cultivate sources, people to give you information. You spend a lot of time on the phone, you spend a lot of time requesting information and waiting for it. You spend a lot of time writing, and in some cases, sometimes the editing process can be long. People want to know about crime, people want to know about schools. It's just one of the more important beats for us, and it's a very competitive beat for us.
And the kind of information we give to people they can't really get from TV. For every word that's written in a story, we may go through hundreds or thousands of words of interviews and drafts, and so it's really a special kind of information, and I'm proud to be able to provide it.
We have a sports department, we have a business department, we have general news reporters, we have graphic artists, we have photographers, we have editors who help produce the paper and get it out every night on deadline. The editor is the one person who tries to oversee that whole operation and get everybody working together so we get the paper out in a coherent way. As the night wears on, this whole process begins to come together, sort of in a lot of material going down a small funnel. It's sort of miraculous to see it happen every night. Then there's a production aspect. The pages are designed, they're laid out, and then the page works its way to the printing presses.
The newspaper production process is a very exciting job. We start early in the morning, and presses actually start running at midnight every night. It's a 24-hour process. We have a creative services department here in Chatsworth that works directly with the advertisers on a daily basis, actually designing and putting the ads together. We, in turn, in operations, work with creative services, all of our advertising departments, and editorial in making up the paper on a daily basis. It's critical that we work with advertising and editorial in the design of the paper. Once the story is written, we create a negative in the plate making department. From there, we take the negative and, like a copy machine, burn the image of the negative onto a plate. The plate making department really creates a negative for every single page in the paper. We then take that negative and make plates, and of course the plates are what we put on the press to print the paper. We make about 2,000 plates every day of the week. The actual production process actually begins in the newsprint handling department, where we receive our newsprint. We receive newsprint primarily from Oregon and Canada through the rail system. The Times is the largest single consumer of recycled newsprint in the country.
When we're offloading newsprint, we generally pick up 2 rolls of newsprint at a time out of the boxcar. The newsprint will weigh 2 tons. This machine itself weighs 6 tons. So you're driving along with a load of 8 tons. The trick is to be able to lift it up into the air without tipping the lift truck over. Half of the job is getting the paper here, the other half is delivering it to the press room. If we don't do our job right, there's no newspaper tomorrow. But the good thing is that every morning I hear that newspaper hit my doorstep, then I know I've done my job.
The most difficult part of running a press is the very first few minutes, where the most time is spent up front in trying to balance the ink and water to make the image look right.
It's up to us. We're the first line of defense for quality control. It's up to us to make sure that nothing that goes out of our press is not sellable quality. I pull a paper off the press, take it into the quiet room, use the eyeglass to check what's called the registration bars to make sure that the color is all aligned properly, and start looking at the dots, each individual dot in the picture, to make sure that they're of the right ink density.
Once the press is fine-tuned, we increase the speed and run much faster. Our maintenance personnel are really the behind-the-scenes people who keep the equipment running. Without properly working equipment, we don't put a paper out on time.
My job as an electrician is to be part of the emergency response team. That is to keep the presses running in case there's any emergency, especially if it's electrical. Being part of the emergency response team is very challenging. There's a lot of pressure to get the presses going, and there are a lot of people standing around expecting the presses to start up as soon as possible. Because if there's an electrical problem and the press goes down, then the paper stops going out, and it doesn't continue to go out until we can get it back up again.
Once the presses run the product, the papers are transferred through a conveyor system into the mailroom. The mailroom's job is primarily to package the paper for distribution. You can imagine with 4 presses running 60,000 papers an hour per press, the mailroom is actually receiving about 4,000 papers per minute. It gets quite hectic in the mailroom.
Well, we like to think that it's real important what we do. Of course, the paper needs to be printed, but we need to make sure that it gets to the customer in one piece, so to speak. It's in good quality, and that the right things go in the right place, and the right number of papers are going to the dealers to make sure they have enough papers for each one of their customers.
We print 3 editions in the San Fernando Valley every day. A San Fernando Valley edition, an East Ventura edition, and a West Ventura edition. About 250,000 papers a day. On Sundays we print a little over 320,000 papers.
We have to get our job done, and then transportation has a matter of 2 hours to get it to the dealer, and the dealer has approximately another 2 hours to get it to the door. So it flows very quickly.
We've got a fleet of about 60 trucks here in the valley. Our drivers will drive over 1 million miles just this year alone. There's a lot of pride in the valley. Every single person contributes to getting the paper out on time every night.
As a newspaper, we think that the Times has a special responsibility to be part of the community that it serves. One way we participate is obvious. We cover the news and we tell people about what's going on in their community. But we also think that we should be good corporate citizens. We encourage our people to be active on community and local charitable organizations. We're very supportive of programs that recognize teachers or literacy, because we think that literacy is a problem that we need to be involved in, and have helped support a literacy center. We also, every year since 1989, have conducted a program called the Community Partnership Awards that gives out 10 $5,000 grants as well as recognition to 10 deserving organizations that serve their community in a variety of ways. In the final analysis, a newspaper is only as good as its people. And we've got a great variety of people, as you've seen in this video today, doing all kinds of different jobs. And the only way that we can succeed is to have all those people doing their jobs well, doing it better than anyone else. All the people at the Times are like that. They're committed to the best, to being professionals, and to putting out the best local newspaper that they can put out every day. And we're indebted to them for that.